Hello, so my name's Michael Conneely and this is a video about Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn, the clash of the Titans, and it's part of our April 2021 Star Wheel Astrology and Healing newsletter. And you can see the list of all the many parts of the April newsletter on my Star Wheel Astrology website. Go to the 2021 April page and it's all listed there with the links to the videos and the blogs. So how are we to understand Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn? Well, one way is to consider that Saturn is structures and strategies and blocks. Of course, the energy of Lord Shani, Lord of Karma, is much more than that, but simply let's have in our mind structures, strategies and blocks. And what about Pluto? Well, Pluto is our power, and often our buried and wounded power that needs to be healed. Oh, and by the way, until April the 6th, Jupiter is in Capricorn too, and Jupiter, although diminished by the setting of Capricorn, is blessing and sense of purpose and guru energy, but he's off into Aquarius on the 6th of April. So Pluto and Saturn were conjunct when the Reformation was started in Europe in 1518 at 17 degrees Sagittarius. So what will the clash of the Titans, Saturn and Pluto at this time, push people towards? I think many will demand a revision of social structures that will accord more with human reality now. But my hope is that that demand for a revision of social structures will be accompanied by spiritual awareness. And also at this time, we people are being pulled towards great psychological transformations. Our blocks with Pluto smashing against them. On the social level, there's quite a movement in the United States to identify and find and express power. However, I see terrible scripts that disempower and block people from even seeing the nature of their power. I mean, what I see so much of is all the political correctness and the conspiracy theories, the astrological ranting, the defining of people by labels, not treating them as individuals. It's amazing. The identification with political divisiveness rather than respectful working together for spiritual growth and power. I'd like to have a small digression that may be helpful, looking at power and the Irish. So I would say, my perception is that generally speaking, the Irish are quite still disempowered by two things essentially, by the imposition of the Catholic Church in and around 432 AD, and secondly, from the terrible tyranny and oppression of the British landlords. Now that started with the Anglo-Norman invasion of Ireland in 1169. And believe it or not, that was organised by the Pope. I think a lot of Irish people wouldn't believe that was true, but it is true. Pope Adrian IV, who came of Anglo-Norman stock, commissioned Henry II of England to invade Ireland. He sent a vicious baron, one to conquer the west of Ireland, one to conquer the east of Ireland. And that was a major conquest. The Irish integrity was harmed. But things really got vicious under the Tudors. Henry VIII brought in the Reformation and seized all the Catholic Church and monastic lands in Ireland and sold them off. And, you know, the governors under the time of Elizabeth I were horrific. But things got appalling when the Tudors died out and they were succeeded by the Stuarts, who brought in the plantations of foreign workers from England and Scotland, just took over, just arrived and said, this land is ours now, get off it, you Irish. And it got appalling when Oliver Cromwell invaded Ireland and people were herded into their churches and the churches set fire to. Lands just given out to Oliver Cromwell's lieutenants, and those pieces of land are still in that family now, near here. But things got really genocidal almost under the English ascendancy class, the English landlords, what with the famine years. And of course it all led to the 1916 uprising and the subsequent independence of Ireland. But I'm trying to say that these wounds from the Catholic Church and the English invasion are still to be fully healed. Still, people are to come into their own personal power and a proper sense of power come to the Irish nation. So I'm using that as a case example. But of course, I'm also going to go on to mention individual struggles for power and more worldwide struggles for power. So Saturn continues super strong and dominant in Capricorn. But Pluto is invaded Capricorn too, and Pluto explodes against negative or restrictive manifestations of Saturn. It is the clash of the Titans at this time, and perhaps people don't realise that fully enough. And just at this moment, Uranus in the heavens from Vedic Aries is squaring Capricorn, and so that is the planet of revolution. And see my other part to my Star Wheel April newsletter, all about the last time that went through, that Uranus went through the sign of Vedic Aries, which saw Adolf Hitler's rise to power and his bringing in of the Second World War. This is the energy that's here now. But a big facet to understand here is Pluto. Pluto in our birth chart is all about our power, and we can be cut off from it, or it can be too vast and massive. And here, of course, Pluto is fighting Saturn restrictions. Regarding the positive manifestations of Pluto energy, the only way to get Pluto to work with Saturn in your life now, when both of them are transiting Vedic Capricorn, and both affecting the life area of your chart, that is Capricorn, is to do your own journey to the abyss, to discover there your hidden true power, maybe denied to you early on, to heal overexpression of power. Only when our personal Pluto is healed can Pluto and Saturn work together. And of course we have to heal Saturn too. Positive structures rather than restrictive structures and blocks. I'm actually offering an online journey to the abyss, which is very good. Many people have loved it. So see my separate April blog and video about that, my journey to the abyss. It peaks a bit, this energy, because Pluto squares the Sun around April the 16th, and Pluto is quincunx Mars around April the 18th. So watch the time around 16th to 18th April. Be careful of violence erupting. Handle the power and energy well. And I want to conclude with a brief statement about the negative manifestations of Pluto. These manifest in the control freaks and the power seekers, and they crush the spontaneous expression of other humans. These people lust for power, even for death and destruction. When this combines with Saturn, it becomes the desire for a bureaucratic grip on a country, or it becomes the imposition of one particular social paradigm against other individuals and in the country, and preaching. It becomes takeover rather than respectful spiritual coexistence. And the thing is, when I was writing this blog for this video, the image of the huge Odeon of Herodes came into my mind. It's a vast, vast Roman theatre built just below the Acropolis of Athens. And I remember thinking when I went there how out of place it looked, so vulgar compared to the Greek architecture of the Parthenon and Athens. Now the Odeon was completed in 161 AD, and it seated 5,000 people. What a triumph for the Roman Empire. But my point is this: would the plutocrats who ordered its construction have believed that the Roman Empire was doomed and would fall shortly when Rome was sacked in 390 AD, only 230 years later? So my point is, leaders and countries can go to great lengths to seize power, but it's ephemeral. Would the Romans who occupied Greece at that time have believed, when they constructed the showy, vast, super expensive, aggressive, dominating structure, that Rome was already coming to its final destiny? It was only just surviving in the remaining couple of hundred years by paying off the people with bread and circuses, by relying on slaves to do the work, by relying on foreign mercenaries to defend the borders of an empire that wasn't theirs. And so when we look at the behaviour of the USA and the UK and Russia and China, remember what negative Pluto scripts can be. Remember the fall of empires. And what is the dark Pluto doing now in our countries? There are leaders ravenous for power and territorial conflict. Suddenly China and the UK are at loggerheads and talking of nuclear weapons. Suddenly Russia is massing on the border of Yugoslavia. Dark Pluto is ravenous and ruthless. And Pluto now is pitting himself in this way against the structures and restrictions of Saturn that can be so repressive. The call now is not for lust for power, not for control, implemented by zombie troops and bureaucrats and conditioned citizens and conditioned revolutionaries. The call now is for this Pluto-Saturn clash to manifest as legitimate power, smashing the blocks and negative structures, and finding harmonious structures and settings in which for humans to flower. Empires never last. So may have to die, though, before the empire falls. Can new consciousness arise now that is more truly connected to the light and save the earth from another rerun of disaster?